There you go. Gave you guys a little bit of that nice, soothing jazz. The jazz horn came in right there. It was very, very cool. Very nice. Hello, everybody. Welcome to All Knicked Up. Of course, we are early, a little early this week. I think we were early last time too, though. So
yeah, we were
becoming a thing. This might be becoming a thing. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe that 8 o'clock would not during the season because we won't have any games, so we can do it a little bit earlier. Hop on there, but. It is May 17th, 2023. It is my sister's 60th birthday, so happy birthday to her.
Birthday, sis.
She's not watching, but maybe if this gets back to her and someone sees it, they could say, "Hey, Eric shouted you out on the show." So, yes, happy birthday to her. We celebrated for her earlier in the month, so her kids threw her a nice surprise dinner. It was nice. It was a nice time. So, yeah, I just want to get that out of the way because I have to do that. That's my family. Don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. So, all right. So when last we spoke, the Knicks were heading into Game 6 because they had won Game 5. So they were heading into Game 6. It was last Friday night. Started out well. The game started out well. They were up 14 at one point. I thought, maybe if they could just keep playing and riding that wave, they could steal that game. But it was not meant to be. Miami came back. RJ Barrett was in foul trouble. Who else was in foul trouble? Somebody else was. And then when Barrett couldn't get it going, the only guy who did get it going was, of course, Jalen Brunson. The Knicks, I think it was like he scored, 14 field goals he hit, and then the rest of the starters hit 5 or something. I forget what it was. Something crazy. Some crazy stat like that. And it just wasn't meant to be. Again, I think in my first reaction to it when it happened was literally when the game ended, I said to myself, this was a coaching difference. And I don't want to put it all on Thibodeau because, you got to play the guys who got you there. I firmly believe that. You can tweak things. You can play guys longer. But at the end of the day, in basketball, specifically the NBA, your stars are usually the ones that are going to take you, win games for you. So I wasn't really mad at him for like not playing Obi more or whatever, because I knew what he was going to do, what he's done all year. It's just how he is as a coach. And I just felt like when the adjustments were there to be made, Spoelstra made them and Thibodeau did it, because the games for the most part were very close, right? There was no real blowout except the one game, I think, and that was it. There was one game where Miami blew the Knicks out, but every other game was very close. So, you live it, you live with it. It's been a tough couple. It's been tough watching. It has been tough watching the other games. I've only watched a few of them. Obviously, the Western Conference Finals just started last night, but it was even tough watching Game 7 of the Boston-Philly series for me. I didn't watch much of it. I watched bits and pieces, but I didn't watch much of it. It was tough for me. So just real quickly, we discussed this, whatever, but give your quick playoff postmortem feelings on what you saw in the playoffs, obviously in that series, and then we'll go from there.
It was very disheartening. To watch some of those games where, I guess it's the same as getting little needles poked into your eyeballs. Very slowly, because it was torturous knowing that the Knicks were just like that close in every game.
Yeah.
And it was just so close, yet seemed insurmountable because it was just they could never get over the hump. And it was a tiny hill. It was like an anthill. It wasn't like a mountain. It was like a little anthill. It was like if one guy hits a shot, if one guy gives you 5 points, literally, this was the difference. If one Knick 5 timely points, other than Jalen Brunson, we're talking about us being in the Eastern Conference Finals. And that was the difference. And I think you can justify a blowout and kind of rectify it in your mind, like you just didn't play hard, or you just, didn't have it that night, or the team just came out and you didn't match energy and all, et cetera, et cetera. You can kind of die on that hill, with that kind of theory. But when you're losing and you're looking around and you're like, you're doing the what if game, or the if so and so just did this, and to know that it really came down to one of our players just extremely underperforming that you expect to at least get some sort of quality output from. So it just made it extremely tough to watch and endure. And then to know that, the Knicks probably would be playing in Boston, who they played extremely well throughout each year. Each year, the Knicks have been that team that has played Boston extremely well. So now we would be seeing us playing against Boston with a great shot of maybe going to the final. It hurts. It hurts a little bit different because not so much as that we expected the team to be this far ahead of schedule, but however, seeing the pathway now, no Embiid, no Harden, no Giannis, and now to know that we didn't have all those obstacles of guys that would literally scare the life out of us if we had to play them in a 7-game series, and to know that Boston is the last team, and they made it very tough to actually be a Knicks fan. And I'm proud of the team. That's the whole thing. I'm very proud of the performance. It's just we know that we might have had a blown opportunity. We may not see it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yes, Craig, I starred your comment. It is Mr. Softy. He's apparently driving around my neighborhood right now, so that's who you hear.
But he's not that soft, though, Craig.
Oh, we got to talk about a conversation I had today on Twitter, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said. Obviously, it's disheartening to know because everything kind of was opening up. There really isn't a elite team out there in the NBA right now. The best player to me is Jokic, and he's playing. He proved that to me again last night. Again, that guy has 6 triple doubles in this playoffs alone. He's fantastic. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, they kind of felt like everything was falling into place when all those ups, when Milwaukee got out, was knocked out, and then that was the one team that always gives us problems. The Bucks were the one team that I felt like we matched up well against everybody else except Milwaukee and Miami. Yeah. And we got Miami in the second round. So, yeah, I mean, it would have been interesting to see what would have happened had the Knicks advanced to play Boston, just because they don't have a dominant big guy. I feel like, we can match them production-wise. Obviously, we don't have any player as good as Tatum or probably Brown. They're probably both still better. Brunson's very good, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But I think those two guys are still probably a little bit better than him. So, it would have been maybe rough to see. It would have been cool, actually, to see how they matched up against them and to see how that if Thibodeau could have outcoached Mazzulla, right? Like, that's another coach that you look at to say, okay, he should have had the advantage there because he got the floor wiped up with him with Spoelstra. Spoelstra was just a step ahead of him, and he never could make that adjustment to catch up. Of course, the guy we are focusing on mostly, and deservedly so in this series and in the playoffs, was Julius Randle yet again. We've touched on a little bit each time we've been on during the playoffs. I just want to say this. You do have to factor in that he probably was not 100%, right? Yeah. The ankle was probably not healthy. He sprained it twice in the matter of, 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the first one was pretty bad. So I'm going to throw that out there just to say that, he probably wasn't playing 100%. I don't know how comfortable he felt making his normal moves. I don't know how comfortable he felt jumping. I did notice, I felt like there were a few times he couldn't get a rebound that I'm like, wow, he normally comes down with that. Mm-hmm. So that could have been affecting how his jump off point is. I don't know. Those are just little things I noticed. But the one thing I cannot and I will not excuse him for is the effort at times. Like, if you're out there, I don't care if you're hurting, play the way you would normally play. That's number one. Mm-hmm. And then 2, the second thing is just the boneheaded decisions sometimes that he makes. And that's not a product of being injured. That's just a product of you. I get it. Usually it's effort, right? He tries to do too much. He wants to do too much. Mm-hmm. But if you're knowing in your head you're physically limited, you have to be the guy who plays a more efficient game, right? Look to pass the ball a little more. Look to be a decoy. That's what Jimmy Butler was doing.
Yep.
That's once he got hurt, that's what Jimmy Butler was doing. Because he did not have a great game in any of those games except game one. I thought game one was his best game, and that's the game he got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I look at that's the one thing I'll look at, and I will get on him for, because it was the same thing against Atlanta, right? It was the same type deal against Atlanta. He was rushing things. He was taking silly shots, making bad decisions with the basketball. Things like that, and those things you have control over.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what state you're in, those things you have control over. So, and let's be honest, yeah, RJ had a couple of bad games, but he was pretty solid most of the playoffs. He was pretty good.
Yep.
So if they would have gotten just half of normal what Julius was giving us, we're probably still playing.
Yep.
Right? We're probably still playing. So he really was the X factor for them again in the playoffs. And we've said it all the time with him. It doesn't take much to push him over the edge. And and it's in his head now. It's obviously something that's in his head now. And I don't know if it's fixable. I remember we spoke after the Atlanta series a couple years ago. I said, it was his first time. He's learning how to be that kind of a player. Let's see what he can do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I can't defend him anymore. Like, you got your second opportunity and you didn't do anything with it. So I don't know what to do going forward when it comes to him, because to me, they're stuck in a lot of ways. I can't see a team wanting to trade for a guy who just crapped the bed in the playoffs when you want everybody to when great players step up the level. I don't care how many All-NBA teams he makes. He's not doing it when it counts.
Mm-hmm.
So,
my take on Julius. He would have been traded 3 years ago. And it's not even, I don't say that to even like be a quote unquote know-it-all about the game and want to be right. I would rather be wrong more than right in this sense. It was just when you watching the game for so long, when you see guys get mentally spooked out, like he did in the Atlanta series, I just didn't see how you make that adjustment, because up until this point, everything that has made you who you are, you rely on at that level, at this level. The only thing you really do is really enhance your skill level, maybe become more efficient in some areas, and try to see the game slow down a little bit, as you get older. The fact that he was someone at this point in time, I think he's in his seventh year at that point, whatever it was, and you've seen defenses, maybe not at the level of the defense played in the regular season, postseason versus regular season. Of course, it's amped up a little bit, but great players always find a way of adjusting. Even when their shot's not falling, they do B instead of A, or they go and rely on C. The things that Julius had an issue with was reading a team. When you can't think this game out or know that they're coming with a double team, and you repeatedly, that's the insanity definition, doing the same thing and expecting changes. And he kept doing the same thing over and over in the Atlanta series, even though I know Tom had some designs in how he wanted to attack Julius, from using Julius on the wing. Great players still realize when it's not working. And then maybe sometimes you got to abort the coach's plan and say, you're not out there seeing what I'm saying. That's not working for us. And I think coaches that trust their players will fall back a little bit and say, I'm going to give you a shot at showing me what you should be doing out there, as opposed to what I believe I'm seeing. Julius just could never make that adjustment. And you can see him starting to get rattled in some of his passes. And I'm just talking about the Atlanta series, period. When seeing that, knowing how I didn't feel like Atlanta was even one of those teams that had that kind of defense that should really wreck. I mean, they had what's his name?
Hunter.
But McMillan.
Yeah.
McMillan's been known for his defense when he was with Seattle. That was part of what he did as a specialty in the NBA. So I'm more than sure. I know he instilled a lot of that in his team to get at people, but it was still not. You had Hunter, you had Collins. These guys closed out a little bit. Capella. But it was the same move Julius would still do the whirly dervish or the Booker T, as I call it, the spin-a-rooney. The spin-a-rooney over and over and over and over and over. And it's like, dude, can you spin left instead of spinning right? Just do something. Call for a pick. You got to, at this level, it's mental. The guys that win the championships and all that, it becomes a mental game more so than a physical game. Because talent, like I said, every player in the NBA was the best player on their either college team or their state. That's just really what it is. You've been an arse kicker in all levels of your game, of your playing years, other than in the NBA. So the guy who's the 15th on the bench is going to burn mostly everybody in the country playing basketball. So, there's no scrubs here. I always say, people call people scrubs or whatever. There's no scrubs in the NBA. There's just guys who are just not the elite level guys. And it comes down mostly to the mentality of the players and their work ethic. So, we know Julius had the work ethic. We never questioned him being in shape and coming in shape and wanting to, play, leave it out on the floor. But that mind game is something you can't teach. You can't teach the IQs. You can't teach the LeBron James savants and the Magic Johnson savants and Tim Duncans and, even a guy like, rest in peace, Bill Russell. That was his thing. Was we know Wilt was the dude, but mentally Bill Russell was the dude because he knew the game so well and knew how to, this dude's in college or trying to design. He's learning statistics on the angles of the floor. He had it all mastered in his mind. If you watch the biography of him, that's a lot of you talk about his intelligence level regarding basketball. Julius doesn't have that. He's a brute. He's a physical brute. He's a bull in the china shop, the classic cliche. And he can never figure out that maybe if you just open the door to the china shop, that they'd still let you in as opposed to breaking down the door. He doesn't know to pick the lock, He'd probably try to pick a lock actually and have all the keys on his ring that he could have just turned the key and let in. So this is the mentality you're dealing with him. And I think people, as much as most of our shows have been drawn back to him, we bring him up as a hot topic because he's everything for this team when you think about it, because so as he goes this team at the level that you're trying to reach. And we all know the shortcoming. The shortcoming is in his mind. He has never been able. So the Atlanta series, when I made that proclamation that trade him, is because I've never seen a player rattled that much ever in the NBA. He was right. He was shook. I tell you, Mob Deep Track. He was completely shook and out of sorts. And we've started seeing the unraveling of him throughout the years he's been here, whether it's succumbing to the fan base or the criticism from the media, from social media, I should say, to worrying about what, your wife is feeling at home. No offense to him. I mean, somebody who's messing with my wife, of course, I'd be mad too. I'm just saying that a lot of the white noise, so to say, he hears all of it. He hears all of it, and he's actually bothered by it. Even if it's the referee, he's bothered by those things. He gets easily triggered and off track. So really what it is with him, the one professional skill he does not have is the ability to block out noise. He has the other abilities, but blocking out the noise and just focusing on a task of winning, you can take him out of his game, much like you said, and you've nailed more than anybody, Eric, when you said one thing and he's gone. And he has proven that. Even when you look at the series that we've gone and endured with under Julius, whether it was the Cleveland series, I know he was injured, didn't play much of that, but the Miami series, we all know. We know the drill. If you're a real Knicks fan, I don't care if you like Julius, you know the drill. You know what's about to happen. One referee whistle, one guy bumps him too much. One of his players or his teammates say, "Hey, you might want to come over here." He wants to punch and fight him. We know the drill that's going to follow, and we can't trust him. That's the bottom line. You can't trust that dude in a foxhole. He's more than likely, when you might want to just need to throw a grenade, he's probably going to launch a nuclear missile because he just doesn't have no feel for what the moment is. And he gets completely thwarted from his mission. You're not going to win with him. That's what the Atlanta series proved to me. I watched him. I was like, you can't win with that. Because you had a guy in Obi who was a rookie looking like he was a veteran. not affected by anything. He just didn't have the skill set at that point, or the patience at that point to understand how to affect and impact his team. But Obi wasn't rattled. RJ wasn't rattled. D Rose wasn't rattled. Burks wasn't rattled. Whoever's on that team wasn't rattled. Julius on the other end, completely rattled. Go Denver.
Yeah,
Who's
that's
that?
my boy Steve. That's my boy Steve. I think Steve. I agree with you. Go Denver. I'm there.
Anything with that Lebanon James. Go on.
Yeah, I mean it's I don't know where else to go with this. Like he's definitely the guy we talked about more on this show than anybody else.
Yep.
He dominates our conversations, and and a lot of the times maybe people will lay it on thick, but I always say this: he's being sold to us as being this superstar, all NBA performer.
Mm-hmm.
So that raises the expectations.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the deal. That's part of playing in. That's part of being a star in this city. When you're a star in this city and you play well, people have expectations. I mean, that's everywhere, but this is a tough place to play. We all know that. We've seen plenty of players be great other places and then come here and they can't handle it.
Yep.
So, you know, I'm like we say all the time too. He seems like a really nice guy, a good father, good husband, all the things you'd want in a role model athlete. But you say it too all the time. You make your name in the regular season, you make your fame in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that's where he's failed twice now. And it's what, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, right? So you know, I don't know what to do going forward. There's talks about, you know, Knick fans. So many Knick fans want to trade him already, and I mean, I think we're on that boat. You were on it before I was. Now I'm on it too. So we're both on that boat together now. It's like I don't know if it's a Royal Caribbean cruise, but it's definitely like a carnival or something. Because
Frontier cruise lines. That's what it is.
Yeah, I don't know what cruise it is, but I'm on that boat now too.
It's Frontier, you know, they'll put holes in the boat. You know, it's Frontier cruise lines.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, going forward now, the player they're going to build around is Brunson. I think you have to build around him. Mm-hmm. He's the guy you know who showed up in the playoffs now 2 years in a row. Last year with Dallas, this year here with us. He's a consistent performer all year long. He plays the same way. Doesn't play defense, but what are you going to do? A lot of guys don't anymore play defense in the NBA anymore. So I think he's the guy you have to look forward to. They made the commitment to Barrett last year. And again, he had a probably I would say a disappointing regular season. But again, after those first 2 games in Cleveland and the last game, he was pretty damn solid.
Oh yeah.
And he you know, he played big, and he always plays big in big games. He's not afraid of the moment. So he's another piece I think you have. But there are a lot of questions they have to answer, right? You know, what to do with Julius, what to do with Quickly, who was, even before the injury, was crap, right? So what do you do with Quickly? What do you do with Obi Toppin? You know, if you don't move Randle, is it really fair that he sits on the bench again behind him?
Yeah.
You know, that's another question they have to ask. What do you do there? Can you improve the roster? You know, they have no draft picks.
No draft
because
picks.
The lottery last night, Dallas stayed within the top 10, so they kept their pick. Mm-hmm. We traded ours for Josh Hart, and we don't have any seconds. So we don't have any draft picks. So how do you improve your roster? They're over the cap.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's got to be via trade. What happens to Evan Fournier? Can they find a trade partner for him? There's a ton of questions that this team needs to ask to answer before we even begin to think about next season. And there's not a lot of time to think about it. I mean, the offseason goes fast. It's summertime. You know,
summertime draft, and then you're back in the realm again. So
there's not a lot of time. I don't know what to do. I mean, we'll throw this out there now. There has been talk about the Knicks possibly trading into the draft. I don't know. I think we've talked about this before. This draft originally was supposed to be a very heavy draft, very high talent draft. Didn't necessarily work out that way. I still do think they're in the top, I want to say 8 or 9 picks is very, very high talent level. Obviously, the first two are really up there with
Mhm.
Victor and Scoot Henderson.
Yep.
But I mean, you have the Thompson twins, you have Brandon Miller, Grady Dick. There's a lot of other players in the mix in the top in the first half of the lottery, probably a little bit later,
Mhm.
who could help a team right away, who have skills who can help a team right away. But that's going to cost you.
Yep.
So there are a ton of questions for this team to answer, and I don't know. I don't know how you do that. I mean, you can't just run it back. I don't think you can just run it back.
I don't think so either.
So what do you think about trading? Do you think they'll trade into this draft? Do you want them to trade into the draft? Would you rather them go another route? What are your thoughts?
I mean, to me, the first part. I mean, this draft, like the drafts that the Knicks should have traded in, have passed, in my opinion. This is a two-legged horse, in as far as I'm concerned, with Victor and Scoot Henderson. Not just saying that the other guys, Grady Dick might be a guy that I would say could come in and fill a void that we have as far as shooting, coming in and giving us a lift off the bench, being able to stretch the floor. He's the kind of guy that if you can get someone like that, I'm a fan of Jed Howard also.
Right.
Another athletic guy. He's touted to be a shooting guard. He looks more like a small forward, but a couple of those dudes. The Thompson twins. They can't. They sing an '80s song as Eric was singing the other night. But as far as like them being able to come in and be ready at this point, there's been a lot of question marks about their shooting ability. So it's like, okay, you're the Knicks. You're coming off of a second round, maybe an overperformance for the year, I guess, in a sense. Nobody expected them to be there. So now it becomes a question of what do you need to get to that next level? Do you say that this year might have been catching lightning in a bottle and it is not something that's sustainable? That's a question you have to ask if you're the Knicks. Like, do we really have the pieces in play to be able to come back year after year after year and at least be in the second round with the talent we have currently? My answer to that is no. I don't think it's a sustainable thing. I do believe Brunson has shown us that he's sustainable. He's lights out. We got a star in New York by star standards of this generation. We have a star in Jalen Brunson, in my opinion. After that, I've always said I think what we proved is that R.J. Barrett is a contributor on a team. And in the playoff, he's a playoff contributor, which is what we would want more so. As far as for me, I'd want that more than I want to worry about whether or not he's great during the regular season. I want it when it matters the most. Will you show up when it all matters? And RJ has proven time and time again, even in lackluster games during the regular season, he will show up when it matters. So to me, we have definitely two pieces that I'm really sold on as far as believing that if you keep those guys, you can do something with them, like they're solidified in a sense or certified. The question marks become your need for adding players that can be consistently great in both seasons. Now, Julius has proven that he can be great in the regular season. Postseason, completely basura. That's trash in Spanish. I just saw it on a garbage can today. But needless to say, we know we're bilingual on the show. We know we say trash in so many different ways. We know that he's not it. How's the saying go? You are not him. He's not him. So this draft, can you pull somebody out this draft that can be something that's solidified moving forward that helps this team's agenda to get past where they were this season? I don't know if it's necessarily a player in this draft that is not a Scoot Henderson, because I even got questions about Victor being that ready right now. Scoot is the guy to me who is ready. Grady Dick ready. Jed Howard possibly ready to contribute. I don't know if there's somebody you go into this draft saying, let me give up draft capital to go in and get, and he can come in and add something to the existing talent or beat out the incumbent talent, because that's a question with Tom Thibodeau. He's only going to go with who he trusts. We go through this whole, the whole whatever mantra that he has, I got to trust you, whatever. Whereas we do need youth. We need athleticism. We need shot makers. All those things that we asked that were missing in the Miami series is what we should be going out trying to obtain. In this draft, I don't know if we have that. So now you got to look at a couple things. So to me, the first priority is trading Julius Randle by whatever means you have to get back at least from what I believe to be 2 players. You don't got to go out and do an exchange of thinking you're going to get equal stud for stud value. I think you can go and piecemeal together a package to bring in 2 solid, one being a vet, one being, well, if it could be 2 vets, actually. I don't have in mind it being 2 vets. 2 vets that can come in and add depth and talent to this team. Not at the level of where you got to go get a 3rd star, because we don't got 3 stars. You know, anybody who's fooling themselves believing we got 3 stars, we don't. We have a star in Brunson. We have a perennial all-star caliber talent in Julius, but he's not a star. He's just an all-star. He's perennial, all-star, regular season dude. And we got RJ, who's still proving himself. So say you go out and get a vet who's been a multiple all-star, and you add him into the mix here. That's the kind of talent, and you bring in another, whether young talent or another proven player. You can add that to this talent and then move Julius. The Knicks are more well-rounded and stronger. Now you can't cheat off of Brunson as much as you might want to. When you double, you might have to pay it because this person, if he's an multiple all-star, he's a proven player in the league that he can come in and knock down buckets without the mental baggage. So the draft, I wouldn't worry so much as about trying to get into. You had to get rid of the elephant in the room that's eating peanuts and the Ringling brothers, which is Julius. Till you fix that issue, you are just playing regular season hero ball and giving out all out effort in the regular season, and you're going to fall apart because this year they had the right matchup in the beginning with Cleveland that allowed them to get into that second round because they own Cleveland, and Cleveland was young too. But Cleveland comes back old and more of a veteran. You got other teams that are going to be nipping at your heels, like Charlotte, if they get Scoot Henderson. You got a lot of teams that are going to be coming up. So you move on from that aspect into next year. Every team's going to try to get better. So you know that you're going to maybe be facing somebody in the first round, maybe like a Boston, maybe a Philly revamped, or one of the more echelon. Maybe Milwaukee comes back revitalized. You might be facing one of those teams in the first round that can easily bounce you out and make you look like you were a mistake last year. So the Knicks can't relax in saying that they're going to bring back this team and run it back with what you have, because the playoffs is a whole different animal. And Julius has proven one thing, is that he doesn't belong in the zoo with those animals in the postseason. He's not. He might be the zookeeper to let you in with and takes the ticket, but he's not going to participate in the jungle with you. So the Knicks are in a bad situation and a great situation. You have answers, but you have a ton of questions on the test that you have to address. And Josh Hart is not the answer for some of those questions. He's a piece. That's all Josh Hart is. Emmanuel Quickley is not the answer for the what's on the test either. He's a piece. You got to find Brunson at least a second running mate or mates that can complete this team and make it more well-rounded, so you're not relying on one player or 2 players, and in case one of the wheels fall off one of those players, you have nothing left. And that's where the Knicks are in a quagmire. They got to get a solid, perennial, or consistent multiple all-star player before they worry about going in this draft and pulling out a youngster they'll never play.
Yeah, I think, to me, it's the way I look at it, though, I think they still have enough youth where if you did like someone in the draft who fits the timeline, you could hop back in there and take him. Like Brandon Miller's another guy, a guy that a lot of people bring up as being maybe even pick second, which I don't see. I think it's gonna go Wemby and Scoot and then everyone else after that. But he's as high as second and more than likely third.
Yeah,
and he's a guy who I think could come in right away and play. Just his body's the way his body is and how he plays the game. I think he's a guy who would be able to contribute right away, especially on a team where he wouldn't have to come in and be the guy, right? Like he could come in and find his spots and and develop that way. So I'm going to put this out there. I mean, we've heard some trade rumors. You've heard Julius Randle. As soon as this happened, as soon as the lottery happened last night, Portland's like, oh, we want to build around Dame. So of course people are like, we have a place to trade Julius.
We got some building, but
right. So him to Portland, I've seen for Jeremy Grant, which you brought up, and the third pick. That's definitely something that I would do in a heartbeat. I'm not even going to lie. I'm not a big Jeremy Grant guy, but I think he's his final year of his contract.
Yeah.
So for me, and he can play. He could score, put up points. The Knicks could always, if you're getting rid of Randall, you're going to need somebody unless Obi comes in and stuff. I mean, that's kind of where I look at it and say, well, if they're moving him, let's bring Obi into the starting lineup and let's give that group a shot. Like, let's roll with them and see what happens. That I have on there, Houston. I heard today Houston's also making the fourth pick available because they have too many young guys. So is that a possibility? Do you want to entertain maybe trading for the fourth pick? I even thought about a scenario where they could trade Obi in something. I don't want to, but just in my head, I'm trying to keep everything on the table. Mm-hmm. They could trade Obi in something, but then I'm like, they have enough. The one position that they do have are big guys. So I don't know if they'd want to do something like that. So would you entertain that kind of scenario? Mm-hmm. The third one I have on there, bring the unicorn home. We've been talking about this. This been rumored. There's been a lot of discussion surrounding Kristaps Porzingis because of his desire to come back, I'll say, to the New York area. Yeah, obviously he learned that the grass isn't always greener. And I think he wants to come back. It would be difficult. I don't know what Washington has planned. Again, him and Bradley Beal haven't been healthy together that long. They might want to see how that pairing would work before they make a move. So that might be something we'd have to wait until maybe the trade deadline next year to happen. If Washington is still what Washington always seems to be, you want to make that kind of a move at that point. I've loved the kid since they drafted him.
Me too.
I've been saying for years, I would have loved to have seen him and Mitch together in a front court.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Some kind of setup like that. So that's one thing I would definitely explore and look at. He's just coming off his best season. He shot 49% from the floor, 39 from three. He's a stretch four, which is what the NBA is about now. Obviously, he could block shots. We've seen it. So that would be an interesting pairing to bring him back. And we know he wants to be here, right? Like, he wants to be either be here or come back here, however you want to put it. He enjoyed his time here. So that's another possibility. So all these things going out there with trades. Are there any other ones you can think of outside of the ones I mentioned? Any other ones you've been pondering in your head that?
Well, I think I'll make Craig West from Philly very happy talking about DeMar DeRozan. He's been a big DeMar DeRozan fan for a while, as well as Mr. Lightskin himself, Zach LaVine. He's a big.
Chicago guys. I don't know.
Couple of posters in his office of Zach LaVine, from what I'm hearing. At least that's the rumor. If I added a fourth option there as far as a trade scenario, it would probably be. I mentioned DeRozan in our private chat. I take him in Elmer Fudd any day. I'm a big Elmer Fudd fan.
Alex Caruso. Yeah.
Alex Caruso. If they would do an Elmer Fudd and DeRozan for Julius Randle, I'd be ecstatic about that. I know a lot of people may look at DeRozan and say, well, you're bringing in a guy who's a little bit older. Obviously, I think he's in his mid-30s, early 30s or whatever.
Yeah, he's 34. Yeah.
34. Still contributing. I look at what we went through in versus Miami, and I'm under the understanding, like, well, would DeRozan have hit some shots? Would he may have gotten fouled? Would he may have tacked the basket? And the answers to those are all yes. Versus what Julius gave us. I mean, like you said earlier, we could believe that he's injured. Okay, that's a nice cushion to say he was injured and maybe not up to full 100%. But then, I always liken back to what other people are doing. And I look at Brunson. There was nobody more injured than Brunson during that series. He had only thing he didn't get hit was hit by a car, and that might have happened when the Miami player hit him in the jaw. So he got hit every place imaginable as a player, and he still went out and averaged almost 40 points in 3 games. So, I mean, I don't know. Jimmy Butler was hobbled, still playing the game. So I don't know, Julius. But needless to say, I'm looking at a guy like DeRozan who could come in, once again, a multiple all-star, guy capable of getting his own shot. He has been clutch during the regular season a lot more than Julius has ever dreamed about being. He hits big
Right.
shots, and he would be coming in not as the best player, he'd be coming here as a complimentary player. So somebody like him, on the fight on the bench, giving Tom Thibodeau, obviously a defensive player that he would love to have in Elmer Fudd. He's going to get at it. He's a tenacious defender. He's got a ring also, I believe. So it's not like he doesn't have some sort of pedigree also as well. If we're hearing right that, DeRozan has always, he's thought about coming to New York. He almost ended up here, put it that way. So
yeah, he did.
And he would probably, from what we're learning from Ian Begley, he would probably welcome an opportunity to come here if it presents itself. So, DeRozan, I would like, to add to the team. I just know we have to get somebody who's at an all-star level talent, maybe a little bit on the downfall. But, Julius's market is not going to net you another star. So if that's in your mind that you're going to somehow pull off a trade to get, Embiid for Randle, put the pipe down, because that's not going to happen. He's not netting you that caliber of a talent, but maybe a Jeremy Grant or maybe a DeMar DeRozan, maybe a Zach LaVine type. I don't want Zach's contract, so I'm not going to ever endorse that. He's not going to net you, be honest. He's not going to net you a lot of these top tier talents. He's not going to get you Luka. So we got to put down the Pookie. And put down the Pookie and not dream that deep. You want to get rid of a guy who you want to get rid of for a reason. So you got to be realistic about his full value on the market. The dude was terrible. He's one of I think historically the worst player in the postseason. And you think you're going to net a great player? You're not. You're going to net a solid talent at this juncture with hopefully a complimentary player that can help get you back. See, there we go.
Yeah, I put a DeRozan for Caruso for Randle and Fournier trade.
It works.
It worked.
It worked, and it would work for both parties. Because see, the thing about it with Julius, nobody's saying Julius Randle's a scrub. See that he's not a scrub.
Clearly, he's not a scrub, man. He made All NBA 2 of the last 3 years, so he's not a scrub. No,
he's not a scrub. He's not to be so much as disliked. I mean, he did the whole antic with the thumb down. Yeah, it was childish. I can move past that if you start winning. I just think that you have, but so many, like they always say in basketball, you have only but so many dunks in your body. You have only so many falls to the floor. Well, in New York, let's keep it a buck. You only getting really one failure. But somehow, due to the length of your contract, you're allowed more failures. Because they really want to expedite you in New York the first time you epically fail bad. And he has epically failed bad in a way that I don't think no other athlete in any New York sport would have been allowed too many second chances, let alone to also curse at the fans. He kind of exhausted, what's that? How to Be a Millionaire? You used to have all those lifelines. You got 3 lifelines. He really had one and a call waiting. He couldn't call those people. He had a call waiting. Because if he had called anybody else, they would have put him on hold. He had a call waiting. He had a direct phone call with New York fans. So when you think along those lines, he's only been afforded that because he's had an organization that supported him, which is, hey, kudos to the Knicks. They found a player, they invested in him, they support him. New York fans really wanted him out in the second year when he came back after getting the contract, and he sucked.
Yeah.
Let's just put it where it is. He sucked that year. That year,
the first year, yeah.
The effort that he came out with was lackluster. You look like you didn't want to be. You look like you got a little heavy. Not that he's in better shape than I'll ever be, but I'm saying for an athlete, for basketball, he looked like he rested. So when looking at that dynamic, he he has to go. He can't stay. I mean, he might come and visit, but he can't stay because you got to now start looking towards moving him somewhere because I don't think he won't survive a third season. That's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, he can't. If he came back again and like he had a great regular season again next year and then crap the bed in the playoffs again, I don't know if he would make it out of the city alive. Of course, I'm being facetious, but just it's
it's true.
I mean, there's only so that if I'll tell you who wouldn't survive that. I think Leon Tibbs, they'd all be gone if that happened. So I definitely think this coming season they are working and coaching for their jobs. I don't think that as much as I want Thibodeau to get fired. I mean, it's crazy you see Budenholzer and Monty Williams get fired.
Yeah.
Phoenix was in the finals a couple years ago. Milwaukee won an NBA title, and they get canned. But Tom still has whatever. I mean, it's completely different. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different dynamic, different things going on. Who knows the relationship between Giannis and Coach Bud? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, he's the guy that runs that franchise. No matter what anyone else says, he's whatever he wants is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So especially because they want to keep him. So, who knows what happened there. The Monty thing was a little surprising. I think that's more of the new owner coming in, Ishbia being the new owner, wanting to pick his own guy, wanting to pick his own coach. I think that's...
He has Isaiah in his ear too, from what I understand.
Yeah, well, we know how that works. Jesus. I'm glad it's Phoenix and not us. I'm glad it's Phoenix. Yeah, I'm glad it's Phoenix and not us. I'm glad he has a new owner, a richer owner's ear to whisper it now than Dolan's. So I'm glad that's happening.
Only in the NBA because they get rid of Sarver and want him to sell, and then the guy's assistant might have been one of the worst snakes in the garden. Literally in our garden, but the garden of the NBA overall. One of the most despised people.
How does this guy keep getting jobs with teams? He literally the owner had to pay sexual harassment charges, fines, and fees for it, and he keeps getting jobs. Oh God. And that's the other crazy thing. He wasn't he like the Liberty GM after that?
Women. I'm
sorry.
You can't make it up. You cannot make it up with them.
That's a totally different topic for a totally other time. All I'll say is I still can't believe that the fact that anyone even mentions moving on from the coach with the Knicks from Thibodeau, it's like, oh, you can't do that. And I'm like, well, a finals appearance and an NBA championship coach just got fired literally last week. Like what are we doing here?
And a semi in Doc Rivers. He's been in the semi.
Yeah, right. He won a title.
And he won a title. He has a resume. I mean, granted, I don't think he's a great coach. I think he had a great opportunity in Boston. I think the Knicks, and I guess we're all kind of guilty to a degree. We are so afraid of not going back or going to someplace other than normalcy. We've endured being abnormal for so long, and I think
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, Stockholm syndrome is just the fear of what's next. So, what they say is better the devil, basically. The Knicks are now familiar with this version, and it seemed like it's good enough. Keeps you a little stability. I mean, we heard Alan Hahn even say, "Oh, you give it a Tom, and it all falls apart." I don't like doing that kind of thinking. I mean, because now you're a prisoner to someone's philosophy and their beliefs. And to look at Tom, you've seen his shortcomings. The only reason we're not pointing them out really right now, to be very honest, if Knicks fans wanted to be real honest with themselves, the only reason you're not pointing out is because Jalen Brunson has been a stud. That's what it has been. Jalen Brunson is I shouldn't say overachieved. He's allowed Tom to overachieve as a coach by hiding a lot of the weaknesses that we know exist on this team. It's just that dude has been a superhero, literally, this season, and has made it look pretty. That's what superstars really do. I mean, when you think about, like I said, in this era of superstar, we're using that term, I don't agree with him being called a superstar, by my standard of what I grew up watching. But I'm just saying, in this league, he's a superstar. They cover up a lot of your team's flaws and your coaching flaws. They make coaches look like geniuses, and I do believe that that's what we're seeing with Tom this year. But he Spoelstra outcoached him and showed every flaw Tom Thibodeau had. Let's keep it real. I mean, he got outcoached. He got spanked. The only reason he didn't look uglier is because Spoelstra didn't have an answer for Jalen. I mean, he confessed that at the podium. He's like, he was just basically living on a wing and a prayer, hoping that this dude made a mistake, in which that's what really cost them Game 6, was Jalen made a mistake.
Yep.
And he took himself out of. I mean, when you look at the brilliance of that game coming down the stretch, he wasn't missing anything. He was a dead-eye shooter. It was whatever he wanted to do, he had it. The worst thing he did was defer at the wrong time. It's like he should have been the most selfish guy coming down the court, and not how he got there. I will say this: he got there in a selfish way because he over dribbled into that double team. So he overcommitted. He needed to make a decision right when he got before the rim, which is either you throw up that shot, but you got to make a commitment, but you don't go deep in. I hate when I see that those passes that Magic Johnson can't make. Those kind of passes. When I look at us like the greatest savants can't make those passes, and he got into savant land, and he's not a passing savant where he could never see a guy to give him an angle, let alone he shoveled it to Julius. I mean, you knew what was going to happen with that. I mean, come on, dude. I know people was like, oh, don't hit anything. I trust Josh Hart chucking that thing from half court, then shoveling Julius in the paint. Are you serious?
The wrong guy was cutting. Right? Like, that's what I said. The wrong guy was cutting at that point.
Parquet, because it couldn't have been butter. You do not put that.
Yeah, man. That
dude on the toast. What? Oh.
Yeah, I still don't know how Julius's big body did not fend off. I forget who was guarding him, but it was a small guy. I remember it wasn't somebody who was big. I think it might have been Lowry. It was somebody small because he like snuck under him and hit the ball away, right? Like he didn't.
He is not him. That's the thing that bothers me, because now we're going back a little bit to Tom as a coach. You should know your personnel well enough to understand you're in a clutch room. He had Mitch Robinson out there at one point too. So we're talking about coaches. No offense to Mitch. I love Mitch. Mitch is a cool dude. I love his interviews. He's probably the best interviewer in New York. However, when we're talking about you're in a clutch situation with a guy who is not an offensive threat, and you
can't hit free throws.
Why do you got this dude who they can easily do hack a Mitch, and he can't hit all the free throws? We know he's a limited. I mean, he's been clutch for those moments. But
he hit them in Game 5. Yeah.
Yeah, he's hit them, but man, come on. You don't keep going you don't keep giving the lottery your money after it's like people, they go and they hit the slots. I got $200. Then you should run to the car, but you go, nah, maybe I'm gonna get more lucky. No, you're gonna lose it all.
I've done that many times.
Everybody everybody's like, this is the drill. Just hand them the money because you're not gonna win more. The likelihood that happens is really none. So the same thing with Mitch. You can't keep going back to this dude, but that could be a liability towards the end. Because now he's not an offensive threat. So teams are not going to double him. They already know. They're going to cheat off of him because it's like he's not going to shoot. There's different ramifications. Yeah, he can't be a clutch shooter. That works two different ways. They can either foul him or not play against him and trap the guy who is going to be the threat.
The thing that's the place that I get annoyed because, maybe if you had, I don't know, played Obi in those situations, you could have played him as well
as a 5,
right? Yeah, as a 5, and maybe he would jump up and draw a foul because he's going for an alley-oop, or maybe he would. And I feel more comfortable with him at the free throw line than I do Mitch. So it's just, that's the thing. But back to the coach, right? That's another coaching thing. The rigidness of his mentality, the way he thinks that only he's a very old school coach in the sense that he will say, "Oh, basketball's positionless," but then how come you don't coach that way? Like he's said it many times. I've heard him say, "Yeah, we're basketball's positionless. Guys can play more than one position." I'm like, yeah, the guys you like, because the guys you don't like, they're not playing more than one position. So yeah, it just goes back again. It goes back to him.
The only team that had the guy who shot the most threes in Knicks history glued to the bench with a team that needed to be able to shoot threes. There's nothing more, and this goes back to my original statement earlier when we started. The maddening part is to watch your team teeter on basically the difference of a couple 3-pointers or a 3-pointer and a 2-point shot. Because if the Knicks had at one point just hit one 3-pointer from somebody other than Jalen Brunson, somebody gives them one 3-pointer, the tide shifts because the games were that close that if you could have a momentum where one guy hit 2 3-pointers, you could win the game as a Knick.
And then also you're changing the defense, right? Because the defense isn't going to sag off of Fournier. They know they have to cover him.
They can't.
So you can make. Yeah, so you have the spacing is better too. So you have that to think of as well. That's another thing. That was Riley sticking with Starks all over again. Not obviously on that scale. This wasn't a finals game, but still, the mentality behind that was the same. Like we said, RJ didn't shoot well. Julius wasn't shooting well. Why not give this guy a shot? Just put him in there and see if he can knock down a couple threes for you. And then, that changes the game. And Miami would not have been prepared because he hadn't been playing.
Yep.
So at that point, you are like, it's do or die. So what do you have to lose? And if it didn't work, you could have said, well, we thought we would throw something at them, put Evan out there, see if we can get hot and hit a couple threes for us and extend the game. And, there's so many ways you can explain it if it doesn't work because it's game 6 and it's do or die. If we lose, we go home. Oh, man, see, we're going back down this road again. I didn't want to go back here. It's over. It's over. I'm moving on. We're moving on now, moving to the future.
Yeah.
Into the summer, into the off season. And yeah, like I said, a lot of decisions need to be made. All right, I wanted to talk about this last topic because it was big in the news this past week. It came up. I think it was Sunday morning is when we got word. Craig actually is the one who sent it to us in the chat. Mm-hmm. And at first I was like, well, how old is this? Is this a new video? I had no idea. No, it was Sunday or Saturday, whenever it happened. I shouldn't laugh because it's not a funny topic to talk about, but I think, Ty, I'm going to let you lead on this one because obviously, as we see, I am not a black man. So I don't have that perspective of what happened. So I'll let you speak to it. I mean, Kwame Brown did a great job, but I'm going to let you speak to it now.
You can't go quite Kwame because there's kids watching. So Kwame, I'm getting your jersey, bro, because you really did what you held. It's what I would say. He had a come to Black Jesus moment. No offense to Caucasian Jesus. He could be whatever color. I'm just saying. I'm just going to Black Jesus moment, and he had a come to Black Jesus moment with John Moran. I can say that. Wow. When the first, let's just rewind back a little bit. When the first time it happened, I will tell you, I was thoroughly pissed. And the reason being is it comes down to one simple fact and its impact. I always speak about impact. When we talk about the black athlete, more than anybody, and more so than anyone, has such an effect on his community in an unfair way, because it should not fall on the athlete to be, the temperature setter in urban communities of minorities, and as well as even if it's affluent blacks, it doesn't matter, or people of color. The African American athlete has always had an emphatic impact on community. Much like music. Unfortunately for us, a lot of our role models start with entertainment, and it's a sad thing. It doesn't start, and for those who may not understand, it does not start usually, with the doctors of the black doctors or the black lawyers or the black accountants or That's not how it starts. It usually starts, unfortunately, with the television, as they call it. You're starting in the entertainment world. That's what we're most noted for, because usually that's how we gain entry into into notoriety and into the forefront, was through entertainment. Unfortunately, you were part of the entertainment. So naturally, this becomes who you gravitate to. Now, the problem being is that we've lost a lot of the consciousness of Black people, in the sense of the athlete, because the days of the Alis and the Robinsons, and guys who had to struggle to actually to get the notoriety, because society was literally whooping their ass, and then you had to go entertain and make it seem like it's okay. So people kind of got the conscious of this of the community we came from, and knew that behind every great song, behind every great athletic event, there was a certain pain and suffering that was going on back home, that that you would have to put on basically a face for, and couldn't express. So when guys like Ali got challenged, and was able, they put a microphone in front of his face, he spoke out against some of those things. He was willing to take a hit, and anyone who can relish back to what he went through, he lost everything. He lost everything for opening his mouth, speaking about what he believed was injustice. So it always pains me when we move forward to a person like Ja Morant. When the first incident happened, and I'm like, this dude is out at an adult entertainment venue. So I'll just put it that way. Partaking in, I guess, what it was, the athletic dance competition. Some of the patrons in the place. This is where this.
Yes.
And what I always equated as, and anybody, I'm going to show a little bit of my age here. He's flashing literally the gun from Harlem Nights. Now, anybody watch Harlem Nights with the Arsenio Hall scene after Quick supposedly he thought Quick killed his brother, and they're out having a shootout, and it's that one guy, you hear the rat attack, and there's that one lone dude that just go, and that's what Ja Morant was in the club with, a little teeny pistol, and thought that was when you decide to show the world that you're strapped, that let me splash this, because I'm that dude. You look like a whole jackass. Let's just put it right where it was. I was pissed then, because I recognized the impact that these athletes have on these young people that are trying to find, some without fathers in the household, some with fathers. I mean, Ja Morant, for one example, has both his parents. Yes. He's a Clarence. Literally, he is Clarence in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
When you think about it, 8 Mile, he's Clarence. You're trying to be in the hood, and you really had it good. You're not in the hood. I'm a product of having it good. I'm not from the hood. I mean, I lived in the hood area, but
right,
good. I have both parents. I'm not doing all that extra stuff, and I'm proud of that. See, that's the difference. I'm proud to know where I'm from, and that I didn't misrepresent how I was raised. That's what I'm getting back into this point. The impressionable minds that you got of these young Black men, for one thing, who are missing those elements, the father and maybe the stable household, where they're looking out on television for role models, unfortunately, or the environment only allows them to see certain role models, whether it's someone dealing narcotics or someone on television whooping out. So you move forward, and this guy decides that he's going to take all of what is the blessings that he's gotten in life, with having 2 parents, with not growing up in the hood. You're going to go out and you want to have hood credentials now, and you're going to go into, like I said, a venue of adulthood and flash a gun. I was extremely pissed because of the fallout that happened after that. And so many of people that look like me that's in the media went to his defense and made this about a Second Amendment right, and about, what about other people? Blah, 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 they get to do it, meaning people that are not Black. And what was the injustice in him doing it? They're trying to frame Roger Rabbit, basically. He made him look like he was like, they're picking on him. And I'm like, the hell picking on him? He's a whole ass right now, because he represents something far more than a political stance He represents something far more than an agenda by the media. You represent a community of millions of young black men who need guidance, and you are effing it up. There's no other way of saying it. You don't defend him in that light. Once you see him, you as one of his peers or one of his brethren or whatever family or whatever you want to call him in the media, you should have lassoed him in and said, "Hey, bro, let me holler at you. We can't have you out here doing this. You represent way too much and you make too much to be out here acting like somebody who's average and someone who is living in an environment that they wish they can get out of." Because I don't know anyone who lives in a hood that wants to stay in the hood. They all want
That's
this.
true.
Nobody wants to return to the hood. They're trying to get out of the hood. Hence why they usually sell narcotics, or they were in an environment where they don't want to get up and have to worry about getting shot every morning. They want to get out of that. Most of the music content you heard from the early 80s and 90s spoke about wanting to get out of the hood and how terrible it was, and somebody come save us. That's what it was about. It wasn't about, oh, let me go back there. Let me leave the Ritz-Carlton to go to Baltimore, to West Baltimore, because they're shooting the wire there, and I want to be an extra in the wire. Nobody goes and says that, but it's the live wire. Nobody ever says that from the hood. They want to get out. They don't want it to be glorified and want to return. If they want to escape. And that's my point. When those guys like Jalen, what's the name? Jalen Rose, even Steven Jackson, who now wants to backtrack, went to this defense. Oh, they're painting him no way. No, he was a jackass. He was a whole ass. And that's exactly, excuse my language, but that's what he was as far as I was concerned. So when they came out and defended him, now all of a sudden I would say he got hacked. This is what the excuse is for people nowadays. You get exposed, you get found out. All of a sudden it wasn't me. They showed me wrong. I'm not that type of person. I got hacked. So he went into hacked and then he went into rehab. Like he was smoking on Friday. We know how long that lasted. It lasted 3 seconds in the movie. He's like, I'm going to rehab. And we know after that, he's like, he was just BSing. He wasn't going to rehab. He was going to go smoke his stuff again. So he goes to Florida for those many days, claiming to come back a rejuvenized, born again Christian. You know how that works. You go to jail, all of a sudden you're Muslim. This is what it is. I mean, I'm going to keep it a buck. Get at me if you don't like it, but that's what happens in the community. And, all of a sudden he's saved and he's renounced and I'll never do it again. Said every criminal I've ever met and known and grew up with.
Yep.
I'm never going to do that again. And I'm like, well, you're not doing it in this next 3 minutes. But, dude, I'm going to see you in about 2 more months, and you're going to be right back to where we were. And where are we now? 2 months later, 3 months later, whatever it is, and we are right back to square one, where the ignorance never stopped. The only thing that stopped was the recording, because the ignorance never stopped. And once the recording went back online, ta-da, we are back with a whole ass again that is sitting there being arguably the worst example and maybe the best example at the same time of what not to do. If you are a person that's fortunate enough to be afforded the opportunity of a lifetime. See, this is when you don't piss away your scholarship. I know a lot of people who had all the world and they pissed it away because they want to be cool or hang out or think that it had an expiration date on the success. Oh, I'm not worried about it. Everybody makes an excuse for me. I'm going to get out of it. Well, you can't get out because your goofy friend, who I think is the one, excuse me if I'm wrong, allegedly was the one, I believe, that was banned from all the NBA games, from what I'm learning. The guy driving the car and taking the video was the same guy. They said, you're not allowed in NBA arenas anymore. And he is the one who is recording you being a goofy rocket from Marvel.
Yes. Yeah.
A goofy rocket from Marvel. Once again, putting not only you're jeopardizing your career and your livelihood, you're also now making a bad mark on any up-and-coming guy who may come from your environment that's looking to try to make themselves out to be something in the NBA. Now you're setting a precedent that everybody's now going to wonder about people's backgrounds when they come from certain places. Will he be the next Ja Morant? Because now you've soiled a lot of things, and they've made it about hip-hop music when, hip-hop was derived from a lot of negative environmental stuff. It wasn't, but it was to try to change and say we need help, not to say let us be the problem and be problematic. And I don't know who this young NBA dude that they claim is an MC or
Well,
whatever.
that's the funny thing that when I heard like what his name was,
Yeah,
like,
I knew the name, but I was like, well, he's not NBA. Somebody said it
right?
he wasn't in the NBA.
Yeah,
NBA. You know, so it's like when hearing this and it's being associated with bad music as his influence instead of him being the influencer. I think that shows a lot about his mentality and his wiring. It also shows him that his lack of appreciation from where he came from, because sometimes that's what's wrong with this entire world, not just a black issue, as much as it's an entitlement issue by a lot of people who believe they've earned some more than what they have than they have. That I'm supposed to have these things, and never understanding as what they claim with Jimmy Butler getting out the mud. See, when you get it out the mud, it's a little bit different. You don't want someone else to take it because you know how hard you had to work for it. And
right.
clearly, Ja, from whatever he claims people don't understand it, or he's misunderstood, or whatever. It's kind of funny when you see guys act like thugs that are not thugs, because now there's supposedly, allegedly, people from the members of the opposing gang type, I'm just going to put it that way, who are now calling him out and saying, I don't think you want to be about the life you're pretending like, because now you are going to have to pay those guys to keep us from you. So when you start hearing that kind of language,
Yeah,
now things get a little bit different, because now we're going to test how much chest you're poking out of that bird cage you got. Because
it's very
clearly
true.
you're not him and you're not that dude. I grew up with a lot of guys that are not those dudes that ended up in jail because they were not those dudes. And it's okay not to be the guy. You got $240 million reasons, $40 million worth of reasons of why you should never want to ever return and be that guy. And he's a jackass. I mean, I wish I could say a better word, excuse me for the explicative, but you're a jackass, dude. And I'm ashamed for my community that you could be a role model for anybody, because you are doing probably arguably the worst job. When I think back on a lot of athletes that have come across, and I know we had Allen Iverson who had, question marks about who you're around. Carmelo dealt with question marks of their associates. Zach Randolph, another guy, questions about who he was associated with. So it's not like it's a brand new topic in the NBA about the environment, but we live in a time where Zach didn't have a cell phone. Melo got caught on a hood tape. And AI, you only heard the legends because you never had material to actually follow and see. You live in a beautiful world nowadays. So guess who is public enemy number one? The only reason we know Stefan was eating Vaseline because he got on video and told us, right?
He did it himself.
So he self-inflicted Vaseline. I mean, patrolling. And once you turn on that dumb camera, once you start filming, idiot, the world sees it. He could have been playing with the gun in the car all he want. Why the hell are you hitting go on the camera?
And that's the thing. Like, it was the guy, the friend, who finally realized, like, what the hell are you doing? And he like throws the phone at that thing.
To be very honest with you, I'm pissed. Talk about the comedy that was involved in that. I know. Oh, it's on. You're done already, dude. It's like it's on. See, this is why you don't hang out with dumb people. This is why they always say smart people know to surround themselves with people that are smarter than them. And this is a case of when that is no more truer than this situation where his friend was like, we're both idiots right now. Hold on.
I mean, there's so many instances now where I have had to go to certain places in my life where, and I'm not talking about like guns or anything. I've been to movie premieres where they're like, you have to give us your phone. Like, you can't bring your phone into the movie theater because they won't let you. We don't want you recording it. So you have to leave. If you want to go to that premiere, you have to keep it, like, put your phone in this compartment and they put it away for you and all that stuff. If I was an athlete, that would be one of the prerequisites of hanging out with me. Like, look, when we're together, your phone goes away. Especially if we're going to do something recklessly stupid, and I know it's going to be stupid. I'm like, you got to do something where even if it was something like shotgunning beers or something like that, which is not illegal again if you're over a certain age, but it's just a bad look, and you have to understand that. And I say I can speak from the perspective of a white person because there's been situations like this throughout my life with Black athletes doing things where I may not have said it, but people in my life have. Oh, he's a thug. Oh, it's another, doing this. And like you have these things happen and you see and you hear them. And as soon as Craig sent that to me, sent it to us in the group, my first reaction was, God, I hope this is old. That was really the thing I said, because this guy is a fantastic player. Let's make no bones about it. He's a fantastic basketball player. He seems like a really good person. Outside of this crazy crap he does, he seems like deep down inside, he seems like a really good dude. You have everything in front of you, man. Just be smarter about it. Again, I've said this many times. We've talked about it in the group. He can own a gun. He lives in Tennessee is an open carry state, I think. He lives in a place where he could do that. But you are not like me, right? He's not like you. He's not like any of us because he's a high profile athlete. And we all know, and these are your boys doing this, but we all know when they build you up, they want to bring you down. That's just how it works in life. So they're looking for things, right? Like you're looking for things now to get this guy with. He already did it back in February when he went to the strip club. So now now people are looking, like you said, is he going to do what he said he's going to do, or is he going to do it again? So now you have a bigger spotlight on you than you ever had before. You don't just have a spotlight on you because you're a great basketball player. You have a spotlight on you because you're a celebrity who did something stupid. And it's just the whole thing when this whole thing is just really sad in so many levels for me, but for the reasons you stated before. This is another role model for kids, especially young Black kids. And now it's tainted, right? He's a tainted role model. So you got to be careful about what you tell your kids about John Moran or how you want to allow them to look up to him or not. That's your choice as a parent. But, now you have to, mitigate that within yourself. And he's just, I really, really hope this time it gets through to him. I don't know if it will. He did release a statement, which I'll read. He said, I know I've disappointed a lot of people who have supported me. This is a journey, and I recognize there is more work to do. My words may not mean much right now, but I take full accountability for my actions. I'm committed to continuing to work on myself. So this is, okay, like I said before with the fool me once thing, right? This is that again.
Yeah.
This is the same situation again, right? It's another thing. It's your second strike, right? You have 2 strikes now. And I'm not saying that he won't have a successful life or whatever, but you might lose a full season of your career. I've heard talk about him being suspended for an entire season. I think that's a little bit much, but I've heard talk about that, and not because of anything else than that he needs to get right? Like they want him to get right, and they feel like he got a slap on the wrist the first time, basically. I mean, and then when he came back, they had a standing ovation for him at the arena, and it didn't get through, right? So you have to the punishment now has to meet the bigger crime.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to, that's something you have to do, as the NBA has to do. I said this to you guys too, and it's working out this way as well. It's not going to be Memphis. It's going to be the NBA. Everyone's like, Memphis should have done. I'm like, no. Memphis is not going to do anything.
Yeah.
It's got to be the NBA.
Gonna be the NBA.
We'll see if Adam Silver, you guys brought this up. It's very true. David Stern would have handled this the first time.
It'd been done.
Like, as much as I think, and Silver pretty much learned at his right, it was his right hand.
Yeah.
So he knows how to go there. It's a different league now. I understand that the players have more power than they had back then. I'll say that too. But now this is the second time Adam Silver has another shot to make a statement. He made it with Donald Sterling.
Yep.
You have another shot to make it with John Morant now. And again, it's a not tragic. I don't want to say tragic. No one died or got killed or anything. It's a sad state.
Sad.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs, but it is what it is. And the last thing I'll say is, with everything that's going on in the country now with gun violence, where I don't care where you stand on the issue, with everything that's going on, dude, just be smarter. Like, why are you so gotta be smarter about it, right?
And I think the thing for me also is, and maybe people that look like me will get pissed that I'm going to say this, but I don't really care. It is what it is. It's really a sad shame, and even when we go back to David Stern, rest in peace to him, and we're moving on to Adam Silver. It's a damn shame that the athletes, that you have corporate America that is trying to frame us to look great, and we have some of us that understand who've come from that environment. It's a shame that they have to tell John Morant to try to represent and make us look like role models. You know, they're forcing him to look like a role model for people to come back that can reach back into the community and maybe possibly replicate. If you see the professionalism of an athlete like a John Morant or like a LeBron James, who are owning businesses, in the Magic Johnsons or whoever you want to go back, and they're saying, well, we've given these guys a model that has allowed them to be successful beyond basketball, that if a young person was to follow, they could say, oh, well, not only is LeBron one of the greatest basketball players, but look at what he's contributed from the business aspect. You know, he's done a multiple amount of things. You back in your community are capable of doing multiple things also. So now it becomes something that's more you can replicate, as opposed to just being a basketball player, because you can't replicate that easily. Like I said, chances of getting NBA is the same chance of getting struck by lightning twice. So this example, they're more worried about preserving the image of black men more than the black men. I hate to put it that way, but when you think about a guy like Ja with all that influence, it should be more important to you than anyone, more important than Silver, more important than Memphis, more important than anyone, that you reach back and say, let me pull up the strap of these people that are coming up behind me so I can be a great role model and example. So you don't got to go and get guns and pick up violence and pick up gang memberships. See, he's hustling backwards, and it just pisses me off, because
That's
you
a good way to put it.
What these, if you want to say non-blacks are trying to do corporately, whether you feel is genuine or not, is more so is what you should be trying to do for your community as well. Create a model that can be replicated instead of finding something to devastate your community more. There's nothing worse than putting a gun in a young black man's hands nowadays and creating a crime environment. You know what's going to happen when the cops come. You already know what's going to happen. You got two options. You're either going to be in jail or dead. And usually it's been more dead than jail nowadays, because you get pumped up on those bullets. There's two sets of rules, whether people want to admit it or not, in this world, especially in the United States. There's a color rule and there's a non-color rule. You know what's going to fall for most of those guys in those environments. They're either going to end up dead or in jail. This is what it's going to be. And for him to be that irresponsible is why it pisses me off. Anyone knows me, I was a big John Morant fan coming out of when he was coming out of Murray.
Yeah, you were.
I was campaigning for this dude. So it's not like I'm like talking bad about him. I was pushing him up. I said he should have been the number one pick over Zion. These guys know.
Yep, you did.
I was campaigning for this dude. So it's not like I'm saying something negative about him now, like to jump on this. I was all in for him. And thank God he didn't end up in New York with these kind of things going on. Maybe it might have been good for him to be in New York. Because maybe in Memphis, you got so much boredom, you can run around with guns. Well, I can tell you one thing, you ran around with guns. You Plexico Burris jersey wearer at that point, because they're gonna find you. You do that recklessness. See, this is why this is about. I know people might not like this. This is about being a responsible gun owner. This is, when we talk about owning a gun, it's about being responsible gun owner. What you don't do is twirl it around like you're in
flashing a gun around,
brandishing a gun. Because here, if you brandish the one, you're getting locked up too. So this is about, if he wanted to be a real dude, he would have said, well, I suggest you arm yourselves. Be professional about it. Why have we got to be twirling around like we Yosemite Sam, fighting off Bugs Bunny? See, now we're talking about being responsible. And he's showing irresponsibility on so many different levels. That's why the NBA need to act like public enemy and shut him down.
Yeah.
And make sure he understands, like I said, his impact. It's his impact. If he wants to be a gun advocate, be a responsible gun advocate. Not twirling it around because you want to listen to Young NBA and act like you about that life and throwing up gang symbols. And people got to remember his history. It's not just the gun twirling. It's not just the strip club. You had young kids you beat up. This reaches further than just the gun. You're showing full irresponsibilities as a whole adult.
Yeah. Yeah. This is something we could talk about for hours and hours if we wanted to. It's something that we see way too often. And it just so happens that it is usually Black athletes that are the ones that get caught, in these situations. It's either when it's white guys, it's for using the N-word that we hear about it.
No, it's
right? That's what we hear about when it's white players.
Stealing funds from the government for volleyball courts. These are the things we
yeah, something like that. That's what we hear. But yeah, fortunately, when it's guns, it's usually Black athletes. And like you said, regardless of where you feel, there are stereotypes that are stuck to certain groups of people. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, this is not something that the thing is, it's very hard to escape this. Once it's like being labeled, like a sex offender, or it's being labeled a racist, or it's like being labeled something like that publicly. It's very hard to rise above it once you have that label. So my hope again is that the NBA does come down on him hard. He does take this time. He gets, okay, I could lose my career over this.
Yeah.
It's really not that serious. My other hope is that, I keep saying it doesn't surprise me that a team with Dylan Brooks has this happen to a guy on the team with Dylan Brooks, the teammate, right? But I mean, maybe Memphis needs to get a really respected, like people say Steven Adams. Yeah, okay, he is that guy, but maybe they need a veteran Black player in there.
Yeah.
To kind of, level things out and
I think
take some kind of control.
I think that's the thing, is that they're too young, and they're too young.
Right.
They're too young, and they've had, I guess, quick success in certain ways when I say that about Memphis, because they have been at the top of the league in the Western Conference
last few years.
Few years. So it's kind of like, they're winning. It's kind of like it hasn't translated in the second season, which meaning the postseason, but they're walking around full of themselves, because they're walking around like we're the best team. We heard he wasn't worried about nobody in the West. Well, he obviously wasn't worried about guns either, so we've heard this mantra. He says, "Oh, I'm only worried about the Celtics." So the arrogance that they presented themselves as, I think if they had the right veteran on there to say, hey, it reminds me of what's his name? Eric Gordon, when he was in Houston, and they asked him what was his take, and he's like, "Get me the hell out of here," because he didn't want to deal with those young kids anymore. I'm more than sure the same thing applies really to Memphis, of not having that vet or several vets to surround around Ja Morant to say, "Youngblood, you're very talented, but you got to block out. You got to lose some of these friends that you got around there." It would take somebody the magnitude. I've just heard him, Ja Morant, and I said this before, this whole gun thing happened. There was a game Memphis was playing LA, and LeBron had gotten into it with, I think it was Desmond Bain. And the language, I was just very shocked, because LeBron, I'm going to show you curses on the court, but he was like really like belligerent with him, like, we can go out after this, and I'm gonna knuckle you up, so to say. And this is the thing about Ja that I didn't like. Ja came over and and for those that might know what this means, he sunned LeBron a little bit, which I was a little floored by. He's like, "All right, LeBron, cut it out," like that, like he was like 3-time champion, like he was Steph Curry coming and say, "All right, yeah, won't you go ahead?" And I'm like, dude, no matter how much disrespect you got for LeBron, I'm not Jonathan Clark, who was on here last
Right.
week. I'm not a coordinator, you know. But however, I'm going to respect the man for his credential. He's one of the greats. I mean, let's just put it where it is. He's done so much for them financially as players that Michael
Yes.
Jordan wasn't able to do and Magic Johnson wasn't able to do. You know, LeBron did empower the athlete. That's what if he's going to be noted for something throughout his career, he empowered the athlete to make his own decisions and where he lands and to make it financially still successful. So he gets credit. So when Ja is cashing those big checks and, you know, having his own power to move on, thank LeBron for that. But it was just the dismissiveness. That's what I was about to say. I was trying to figure out what kind of vet can even go on a team when you have a guy like LeBron, who would probably
Yeah.
be the right type of guy to go on your team and say, hey, pump the brakes. I can show you how to win. When you son LeBron on the court, like you dismissed him, like, all right, go on. All right, LeBron, calm down. Go on. You
I don't
ain't
know.
when you brush LeBron, I looked at that, and I mean, I know guys have gotten at LeBron competitively, but it was
Yeah.
it was how he talked to him during that day. And I don't know if you guys remember me saying, I did say to you, I was like, I can't believe he talked to LeBron like he was nobody. And I'm like, that's not gonna. I mean,
I'm trying to think.
elder, so to say, but I'm saying like,
Right.
it was just
Right.
bad look.
I'm trying to think, like, part of me was like a Jeff Green might be better to someone to relate to him, like, because of his demeanor, the way he is. I don't know if Ja would respond responsible to a guy who's as combative. Sometimes when you're combative with somebody,
Yeah.
you know, you just fight and the sparks fly.
Mm-hmm.
So he might need someone who's a little bit less combative, a little bit more easygoing, be like, hey man, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I understand you have a lot of access and stuff like that, but be smarter about what you're doing. You know, he shouldn't need this to be told to him now, but who knows?
He might need Mike Conley
Oh,
to come back to Memphis. That would be someone to bring
yeah,
back to Memphis to be be his backup and like be in his ear. That would be somebody I would
yeah,
hire
they're
with them.
because they're very, like you said, they're a very young team. They don't have a lot of veterans.
Mm-hmm.
So they do need somebody somebody like that to come in and kind of be like the guy for him. You wouldn't think so, like you said. He comes from a two-parent home. The structure is all there, but it's the allure, I guess, it's the danger. Like some guys get caught and they're just drawn to the dangerous life or what they think the dangerous. That's what I should say. What they think that is.
Yeah.
Based off of music and movies and what
Mm-hmm.
they see on TV, and then they don't really. I did find it funny, listening to certain people these past few days when they talk about this.
Yeah.
With how many gangsters, like real gangsters, they actually know. Like it's crazy. Like Bart Scott was talking about it. He played in Baltimore, right? So
Yeah.
that's not too far of a leap to believe he would know people like that.
Yeah.
But he's like, yeah, he's like, after this happened, he's like, some of these old guys reached out to me and were like, does he really know what this life is about? And like, what is, you know, it was just weird for me to be like, wow, you know, I know athletes roll deep and they know people, but
Yeah.
it was really more surprising to me how many just came out more openly talking about those, not saying their names, but just saying, yeah, you know, we know these dudes. Like,
Yeah.
we know these real gangster dudes who you're trying to emulate and see you are. It was very, very crazy to hear that stuff. So
Every
let's
every dude that I've ever grew up with that was about their life, they never bragged about it. They just
yeah,
they
like,
did it, but they would never show you. Like you knew that was the dude you just don't go over to. You know,
yeah,
you can fool with, but you know, if you're not ready for that, you don't go challenge that because you're probably not that dude that should go over there. So I just always found it just fascinating that people are drawn to, you know, a lifestyle that you don't even relate to. It's not even in your
I
DNA.
know.
And like I said, most people, when you hear the stories of a lot of the athletes that come from the inner city, you often hear like a person that would be kind of good for him is Derrick Rose if he was there with him, because Derrick Rose tells the
Right.
story of how growing up in Chicago and his life, and which is an amazing thing. If you can check out any of the footage, I think it was on Matt Hoffa. He did an interview, and man, that dude talks about his life, you know, and how he got out and all the et cetera. And that's the thing about it. He wasn't waving guns. You know, that's the whole
No.
thing. He grew up in that, and he was like, "Get me the hell out of here."
Right. Curtis Martin too. Like if you ever listen to Curtis Martin talk about growing up he grew up in Pittsburgh, went to Pittsburgh
Mhm.
for college and everything. But he talked about a story where some guy almost shot him, and the only reason he didn't, like, in the head, and the only reason the gun didn't go off is because it jammed. Like the gun jammed. He said that's the only reason I'm still here. But I bring him up because Curtis Martin is the most quiet,
Yeah.
low key,
Yep.
right? Like one of those type of dudes. But he knew people in that life, and he knew had people around that life. He was caught up in it for a little while himself.
Mhm.
So, but see that doesn't surprise me because they're the real ones, and they know
Yeah.
they know the consequences, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, this is something we could talk about for hours and
Yeah,
hours,
yeah.
but we don't have that kind of time.
Nah.
So let's shut this episode
Yes, sir.
down. Go ahead, Ty, and tell people where they can talk to you if they want to talk to you.
You can talk to me on Twitter at Genius Scribble. You can also talk to me on our All Nicked Up fan page on Facebook. Come on, give us a chat. I'm gonna put up some more articles in the coming weeks, coming days, probably more so than coming weeks. So don't feel free to come and engage with us. We need the traffic and we need the conversation. So
Yeah, I'm gonna try and start putting up. I have an RSS feed set up now. I'm gonna see if I can set it up through the page so that the articles that I want to point just get posted there automatically, and I don't have to do it
good,
myself.
good.
Because they're obviously off season's a very fun time to be following a team, to talk about what's going on and everything. And the Knicks are always mentioned in trade rumors, even though they never happen. They're always mentioned. They're always mentioned in the rumors. So it'll be fun to have those discussions revolving around any of the rumors that we hear. The ones I mentioned already on the show today. If anybody wants to talk to about any of those, you could talk to us in the group, and we will definitely chat with you over there. You guys want to hit me up on Twitter? You see my information right here on the screen. There we go. At Finally33 is my personal account. At All Nicked Up is the show account. There's definitely been more traffic with that one, which I'm happy. I'm trying to build it up, interacting with people, other people in the industry, other bloggers and
Mhm.
podcasters and stuff, just trying to get them out there, know who we are. Trying to do that as well. Again, guys, talk to me about anything. As you all know as well, I do a show called Straight Outta Gotham at straight_O_G. It is a fandom pop culture podcast that I do with my friend Peter Vera. We talk about comic book movies and everything going on in entertainment, from horror and we don't usually do music, so that's one thing we don't do. But all the other stuff that's in there, TV shows and all that fun stuff is there. If you're interested in that stuff, check me out over there and give us a follow. If you like our show, give us a like, follow, subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, that is the best way to know when the show goes live. It immediately will alert you, and you'll be able to watch us right then and there. And setting up the who is Craig leaving? Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have the comments open. Now I'm looking and I'm like, this dude
Comments
is
are hilarious. He's talking about.
so
Well,
crap.
we do need to. I don't know how it would work, but yeah, it would be great to have call-ins. That would be kind of cool. So
Yeah, that's something that I don't
have to
know.
look into how that would.
I think we'd have to do it through Skype, but I think there is a way to do it. I'd have to look into it. I'm gonna look into it and see how to do it through StreamYard. I know I can do it on Zencaster,
Mhm.
but I don't know how I can do video on Zencaster. So I'll look into that as well and see if I can figure that out. But yeah, it would be cool if we could take live calls on the air. I think that'd be a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
So again, guys, every Wednesday night we do the show. As you know, usually it's been 9:00. We might be switching to 8:00 Eastern time, just so it's a little bit earlier. You guys, after coming home from work, settling in, eat your dinner, you can hop on and watch it and join in with us, talk about the Knicks and everything that's going on in the NBA. So for Ty, I'm Eric. You are watching All Nicked Up, and we will see you next time.